Yeah, well, thank you. That's right. You know, when I sold cattle all over and wherever in different barns, if you can't understand what the people are saying, go home. So I make damn sure that I stand right up close to it, you know. Otherwise, I might get in trouble. But anyway, my name is Almit Breuer. I'm here today to say a few, hopefully, good things about my good friend that I've known since 1954. And at that time, I don't recall. If you get a little snow on the head, you know that you kind of can't remember. But I did meet him in 1954, Virgil Hertz, and I have no notes or anything like that. But I'm going to tell it to you like I saw it. There's no exaggeration here. The first time I met him, you know, we didn't know each other, of course. But as I was in and out behind or wherever in the arena, bucking chutes, I noticed this guy. The first thing I noticed about him, whenever there was a gate rattler, he was always up there trying to cool that horse down or what have you. Or if he somebody there that needed somebody to pull a cinch, he was there. And after the first rodeo went by, I thought to myself, and I had to drive on them dirty gravel roads a long way before I got home. But I got to thinking about what I saw. And I kind of watched him as years went by. Doggone it, he did it all the time. All the time. He was very helpful. I remember the 3 J's. I don't remember if you folks don't probably know the 3 J's, but it was John Stevenson, Jim Weeks, Jack Chesron. They had a string of bucking horses. Stevenson had bulls. And Virgil, naturally the kind of guy he is, he's always helpful. He'd take these horses that Johnny would bring him, and who do you suppose got to ride them? Virgil. Johnny told me that. I said, we were visiting one day, I said, who are you getting to exercise or buck these horses out? Well, he said, I go get Virgil. And so he helped old John out a whole bunch. But I know you all want to get home and all that, and we got a lot to go over today, but the thing I would just like to get my point across with Virgil, as long as I've known him, and I said that was since 1954, you won't find a guy that'll pitch in and do what he's done and accomplish all the things in life that he's accomplished. And not only is was a good competitor, because I had to go against him. And so we was kind of locking horns most every weekend. But, he's not only was a good bronc rider, that son of a gun could steer wrestle too. Just about the time you figured you were going to win that sucker, he'd probably jump out and beat your butt. And so that's the kind of guy I knew him. And like every good person, there's always somebody there that walks that extra mile. And Virgil, where are you sitting right now? Anyway, but I'd like to compliment his wife. She probably kept him out there and kept him going, you know. So, there you go. So every good man's always got somebody behind him. But will you trustees, when you get ready to cast your ballot, let your heart be your guide. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rodney Nelson. I'm from Sims, North Dakota, which is 30 miles north of Virgil. And I don't know that I'm really qualified to speak on Virgil's behalf. I've known Virgil for 52 years, but I was scared of him the first 50. So, you know, my first memory of Virgil, my dad took my brother Orrin, who was entered in the bronc ride, and I was too young, to a rodeo in Hazelden, North Dakota. And as we got there, walked down behind the chutes, my brother, who was a better bronc rider than me, but not as smart, walked up to Virgil and knocked his hat off and called him a big dumb Indian. And the fight was, well, it wasn't a fight, it was a wrestling match. Virgil obviously liked my brother, or he put him in the pretzel hold right away. But anyway, they wrestled around back there, knocked down a bunch of the pens behind the chutes, and had a wonderfully good time. And that's just, they were always, had to be good friends or he'd have killed my brother. The next weekend when my brother was ready to go to a rodeo, Dad said, "Is that big Indian going to be there?" Orrin said, "Oh yeah." He said, "You better stay home." So I've known Virgil for all those years. He was kind of at the twilight of his career when I started rodeoing, but I remember Virgil riding broncs and bulldogging. Of course I do, and there's a lot of people can talk more about those days than I can. Now, I never was Virgil's neighbor, but I know a lot of people that were Virgil's neighbor or have been or are Virgil's neighbor to this day. And I've heard many accolades about Virgil as a cowboy, as a cattleman, and most of all, and probably most importantly, as a neighbor, which is probably the best compliment you could give anyone, is that they'd make a neighbor, a good neighbor. I think the only thing that Virgil was really sorry at was as a rodeo judge. He always seemed to mark Reggie Luger way higher than me, and I never much cared for that, Virgil. And but it was as a rodeo judge that Virgil gave me my most memorable memory of Virgil. He was judging a rodeo in Elgin, North Dakota, big oval arena. Some guy rode a bareback horse, and he rode the horse, and the horse took off running. The big swing around that arena going wide open. Virgil's, he's kind of figures slow. He's writing down his scores. Somebody said heads up, and he turned around just in time. That horse hit him head on and just blew him over. Papers in the air. It was awful. Virgil picked himself off the ground and said, "If that SOB comes around one more time, I'll get him," he said. So I think to be a member of the North Dakota Cowboy Hall of Fame, by God, you got to be cowboy tough. And I think Virgil fits that bill.
My name's Winston Satran, and I was deputy warden and warden at the penitentiary when we started the prison rodeo. And Virgil was our judge for 13 out of 14 years. I remember always the relieved feeling I had when I saw Virgil walk through the gate. Not because he was just an excellent judge, but I knew he was probably the top hand in the arena. And when we had a disaster, and I could tell you, we had lots of disasters. He always marked rides accurately, and I loved it because he never let down the cowboy tradition. If an inmate came out and scored a 62 on a saddle bronc, he didn't mark him 72, he gave him a 62. And he was proud to be a rodeo cowboy. He was proud of rodeos. And he made our inmates appreciate what a good ride was. It was interesting. Joe Berger had a bull called Wild Bill Howman. He had never been covered. And an inmate from Missouri named Gary Yarborough got on top of Wild Bill Howman, went out there and stayed with him every twist and buck, and Virgil scored him an 84. First time he had ever been ridden. And Gary had time to do in Missouri, and so he wrote me a letter after he got down there, and he asked me if he could transfer back to the North Dakota prison. He said, "I'm in Jeff City. It's the place God forgot." But I always liked it that Virgil never degraded the honesty of the game of rodeo. And I know a lot of people looked at the prison rodeos as amateurs. They were, but Virgil brought credibility to the prison rodeo. He taught inmates what a real cowboy stood for. The other thing I liked about Virgil, NDRA cowboys followed him in. They filled behind the chutes. They helped him get bareback riggings on, saddle broncs on. saddles on, bull ropes, and they were telling them how to do it. And I would notice Virgil coaching the inmate getting on a saddle bronc, what to do. And then he judged him accurately. I do know that some days he almost wore out a pencil with B.O., buck-offs. But the crowd cheered wildly. It was interesting. We would have 7,000 people over those 2 days, and whether inmates got the horses rode or didn't ride, they cheered. And the thing I liked about the NDRA Cowboys and Virgil and the other judges we had, they brought it to a legitimate rodeo. I believe every cowboy rancher should give strong consideration to this man, Cowboy Virgil Hertz, would it be in the esteemed category of an inductee into the Cowboy Hall of Fame. Virgil's a man.
And I wasn't asked to speak on behalf of Virgil, but Virgil Hertz was my neighbor for 24 years growing up. Never heard my dad ever say a bad word about Virgil, and if anybody knows Butch Woodbury, they know he's a man of a lot of words. But there's 3 words that I want to use to describe Virgil Hertz: faith, family, and supporter. And he is the type of individual that is deserving of somebody in leadership, ranching, and rodeo. And because of those 3 words, good luck, Virgil. I know you deserve it. And thank you, everybody.